Live, and for those watching from home, welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. I am your host, Chef Andy, and today I've got some Indian delicacies for us to make. We're going to be doing a very simple butter chicken, and we're going to be pairing that with some roti. I'm going to introduce the ingredients foremost, and then we'll proceed to the very simple process of making the two very simple dishes. Now from the very front, I've got some mixed herbs. I've also got some chili powder and some cayenne pepper. You're also going to require a couple of cloves of garlic, some cumin powder and some chili flakes, some vinegar there. I'm actually going to be using some malt vinegar, but you can alternate that for some white vinegar. You're also going to require some butter, about 2 medium-sized red onions, 200 grams of some cut up chicken pieces, some tomatoes there, about 2 medium-sized tomatoes will do. You'll also require 1.5 cups of flour and about another half cup of flour for dusting. Also, you'll require some vegetable stock, some oil that you're going to be cooking with. So I'm going to be using some olive oil and some hazelnut oil. And last but not least, some salt for seasoning, some limes there to garnish with, some sugar as well to finish off the very simple sauce we're going to be doing. So we're going to give you a chance now to freshen up, prepare for the show, grab some pens and papers if you're taking notes, and we'll see you after a very short while. Welcome back, viewers at home and those tuning in from online. Thank you once again for joining us in choosing BrandPlus for this particular episode. So we're going to start off very simply by heating up a pan. Now remember, we're going to be making a butter chicken, but very foremost, we're going to be browning our chicken firstly. We're going to make our sauce and we're going to blend that down and then combine everything else right towards the end of the dish. So just to start us off, very simply, grab your chicken and of course some oil for frying. Give a nice generous drizzle to your pan and proceed to move your pan around, allowing your oil to coat the base of your pan. And running your pan at medium to high heat, proceed to allow your pan to get a little hotter. So you should actually be able to see just a little bit of smoke coming from your pan. And just to give you a little definition or rather breakdown of the dish, Rogan Josh is a very Indian name, a very particular dish that comes from the Indian nation. And for those of you who may want to actually be able to know the name and the sauce behind this beautiful dish, it actually came from a nice beautiful town in India. It actually has come through a lot of different variations, so I'm actually going to use a very simple and not very technical recipe for some of you at home to be able to actually do on your own. Remember, you can actually go and try out some Indian eat-outs. Do actually also try out the butter chicken varieties out there, and I'm sure you'll be able to gather some very handy information. So just to start us off, proceed to add our chicken. And while frying that at high heat, proceed to mix your chicken in the pan. And we're going to proceed to do so right up until the chicken is beautifully browned. Of course, at this stage, we are not going to be incorporating any particular dishes. Remember, we're going to be adding this to the dish much later. Proceed to toss that a few times, and of course proceed to lay or rather spread the ingredients to the bottom of the pan. That should allow for it to color very easily. But while that continues, we're going to proceed to prepare some of the other ingredients. To start us off, we're going to finely chop some garlic. chop until it was some very, very small pieces. We're just going to reserve this on the side of our board. And to that we're going to proceed to add some onion. So proceed to begin by first chopping your onion in half. You proceed to slice that into some half moon shape. Discard the roots. And proceed to do the same for your second piece of onion. And just to mention, a lot of Indian dishes will actually call for quite a bit of onion, so don't be shy of adding an extra onion if you so wish. And you can also vary the spices as well. Remember, I'm going to be making a very mild butter chicken, but you can of course alternate the ingredients on your recipe to make it a little spicier, if of course you can actually handle that much spice. Now just to come back to the chicken, proceed to toss once more. Allowing your chicken to color completely, and you will now proceed to grab a plate which you're going to be resting your chicken in very briefly. So by this stage your chicken is now nicely browned. It should take you anywhere between 4 to 5 minutes to do this very quickly. And of course, very importantly, always make sure to take a bit of time to make sure your chicken is cooked almost all the way through at this particular stage, because remember you are going to incorporate this lastly to the sauce. To get some nice beautiful color there. You should actually also be able to get some nice beautiful specks of some brown. This stage you can add a little bit of oil just to allow for more faster cooking. And proceed to toss together. Now once your chicken is fully coated, proceed to remove from the heat and allow to rest in a plate very, very briefly. And now to the same pan, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, so don't change the pan at this stage. Proceed to allow your chicken to cool off on the side. And proceed to add in about a tablespoon of hazelnut oil. If you're not able to particularly find this in your retail stores next to you, you can alternatively just use regular vegetable oil. Now this particular oil is a bit costlier than olive oil, but it is actually very, very beautiful with flavors. Remember, for most particular recipes that may actually call for you to actually add a bit of cashew nuts, I'm alternatively using some hazelnut oil, which will bring that beautiful nuttiness to the dish. So very simply proceed to add your garlic and allow for that to just fragrant really quickly in your pan. Once it just begins to start to turn to gold, proceed to add your red onion. Toss a few times, allowing the mixture to mix through. And now at this stage we'll proceed to add our cumin powder and a small pinch of some cayenne pepper. Proceed to mix through. And you can proceed to cool off your pan very lightly by adding small bit of water. That should allow for you to dissolve your seasoning very nicely through the onions, and also allow for you to get a nice even cooking of your onions. Next up, proceed to grab your tomatoes, proceeding firstly by taking out that stem end. So begin to cut right around that small stem end, of course cutting in not more than ½ centimeter into your tomato, and just core out that small stem end. Do the same for the other piece. And you can discard those. Now proceed. Chop your onion now into some 1-inch cubes. And you can also throw this in your food processor, or you can just juice them very quickly in a blender. You can begin by cooking them as they are in their whole sizes, and then proceed to add that to your pan with the onions and garlic. So proceed to add your tomatoes. So you may actually want to find some ripe tomatoes for this recipe. They're actually a little sweeter. They do carry some very, very beautiful juices, and they're also less acidic. Proceed to mix through once more. And at this stage, you're going to proceed to add your butter. So I'm using about 30 to 35 grams of unsalted butter for this recipe. Now toss everything together, making sure to melt your butter completely and get a nice even mix right through the dish. Proceed to mix through thoroughly. Once that's done, proceed to add in your malt vinegar. Add in also a small teaspoon of sugar. And you can also add in your mixed herbs. Proceed to mix that through once more. And now, last but not least, proceed to add the rest of your cayenne pepper and your chili powder. Proceed to mix through. And it will actually begin to get quite a little spicy, so be sure to actually allow for some air to come into the room. By this I mean open a window out. It will actually allow for you to allow for all that excess spice to really just sip out of the room and allow you to proceed to work without a problem. And for those particularly thinking of making this dish for your family, you may want to go easy on the cayenne pepper, the chili flakes and the chili powder, because it will actually give the food quite a bit of heat. And once your tomatoes just begin to cook down, we're going to proceed to add some water. Mix that through again. Now while that continues, proceed to grab a small sieve And very quickly slice your limes in half and proceed to squeeze the juices into your pan. Now this will actually give a nice beautiful lift of flavor. The acidity will actually also help to break your tomatoes really well, and generally it will give a nice beautiful balance with the chili and the cayenne pepper. So proceed to squeeze all your 4 pieces. And of course I'm using a sieve right over the pan to make sure we don't actually add any pulp or seed to the mixture. And now proceed to give that a quick mix. And next up, proceed to add small teaspoon of some chili flakes. And just when your tomatoes are almost broken down completely, we're going to proceed to turn our heat off, and we're going to proceed to puree this mixture very quickly using our jug here. Remember, you can use a stick blender to actually puree this very quickly, or you can also just use a food processor, as I mentioned a little earlier. Break the tomatoes down, and then add the puree to the mixture. It will give a nice beautiful consistency as well. So very simply, holding your wooden spoon right over the jug, proceed to scoop your mixture in. Right, once that's added, proceed to take that to your mortar here and proceed to blend everything together. Once pureed, proceed to remove and pour back into your pan. Should actually give a nice, beautiful, chunky mixture. Quick rinse of your hands, and you can now proceed to reheat the mixture. And proceed to throw in your chicken, and very quickly give that a mix. Now we're going to allow that to continue cooking very gently and disturbed on the side here until it's nicely consistent. And next up, I'm going to throw on a pan and proceed to heat up about half a cup of water. Now we're looking for about anywhere between lukewarm to hot. Remember, this we're going to be using to make our roti. So I'm just going to proceed to make some space. Alright, so for this particular stage, you'll need a nice clean working surface. And for the roti, you're going to require, as I mentioned, about 1.5 cups of flour, some extra flour for dusting, of course a bit of salt for seasoning, and last but not least, some cooking oil. And you will proceed to grab a nice big mixing bowl. To that you'll add your flour. Now your water is just about ready to come out. Just quickly give that a mix and allow for the chicken to proceed to cook. going to quickly take our water out of the pot. We'll just pour that into our jug on the side. And we're going to now proceed to make our roti mixture. So very quickly make a well right in the center of your bowl. Proceed to add in your lukewarm water and begin to fold in from the outside in, making sure to cover the water completely with some flour. And now using your fingertips, begin to work around the bowl. Your flour at this stage should actually begin to start forming some crumbs. Once you get there, proceed to add a little bit of water once more and proceed to mix through, working your flour into a dough. And at this stage, we're also going to add a little bit of salt for seasoning. Proceed to work your dough, making sure to reconstitute all the flour on the sides of your bowl to the center. Now we can proceed to turn down the temperature on our chicken, and that should be now ready to serve. So we're going to leave that on the side for now. Just to come back to the flour, proceed to reconstitute your dough into a ball. Of course, always making sure to use your tips to rub off any flour that's stuck to the sides of your bowl. I particularly like to work with a clear bowl because it does allow for you to see right through. Also allows for you to make sure that the flour you're using is very consistent and doesn't have any impurities. Right, so once your bowl is nice and clean and you've got all your flour constituted to the bottom, proceed to use your bowl of dough to wipe out any flour on the sides of your bowl. And once that's done, we're going to proceed to add our oil. So very gently add a couple of, probably a tablespoon of oil to the palm of your hand and begin to work your dough, making sure to incorporate all your flour. And proceed to knead some more, incorporating your oil into your dough. Once that is done, we're going to proceed to allow that to rest very briefly. We're also going to take this chance to allow you to also grab some air, take a rest, and when we do come back from the short break, we're going to proceed to roll out our roti and cook it on the pan. We're also going to proceed to the last and final part of the show, which is basically the plating of this very simple dish. But before we get that far, I will allow you to take a break, and we'll see you after a very short while. For those of you who are just tuning in, we've been working on a very simple butter chicken, which I'll show you when I'm plating. But right now we're going to get into the last part of our cooking, which is making our roti. Very importantly, begin by heating up a pan. Next up, proceed to roll out your roti. Of course, beginning firstly by dusting the surface you'll be working on. And very simply, we're going to proceed to divide our dough in 2 equal pieces, making sure to actually reconstitute your dough. Roll it back into a nice ball shape. It may actually be a little bigger than a golf ball, so what we're going to do is we're going to pinch off a bit of the excess, looking for much smaller size. And once you get that nice, almost similar to a golf ball shape, we're now going to proceed to roll this out. So grabbing your rolling pin, begin to roll out your dough, making sure to turn continuously as you roll, and of course to make sure to do so on a well dusted surface. So just proceed to roll out your dough, turning of course continuously as you roll. So we're looking for very thin consistency and a very thin thickness too. So about 1/4 centimeter. Proceed to turn once more. And proceed to even out the edges of your roti. Turning one last time. Just to finish that off, even out the edges. And to your hot pan, proceed to add your roti and allow for the cooking of the first side, and we'll proceed to do so for the second piece. Also for that, pinch out a bit of the excess, making sure to look for exactly the same size as for your first piece. And now proceed to dust once more right on your surface and right over the top, and begin to roll that out. Turn once and proceeding to roll just as you did with the first piece. Turn once more. Proceed to roll, of course always making sure to have a nice coat of flour over your surface that you're working on. Turn once. Just to finish that off, very importantly, always remember to even out the edges, because this on very many occasions always happen to be the thickest part of your roti. So be sure to take some time to make sure to even out your roti very evenly by going over it about 2-3 times with your rolling pin right before it hits your pan. So our second piece is now nicely rolled out. We're going to proceed to get rid of everything else. And of course proceed to give your table a nice quick wipe, giving you some nice clean surface to work on. Right, now back to our first piece of roti. Very simply using a pair of tongs. Proceed to check for the coloring and turn once. Allow to continue cooking on the other side. Of course, always making sure to get that nice, beautiful, those nice, beautiful pockets to pop. Remember, that's a particularly good checkpoint for making roti, so it should actually begin to swell right from the center. Touching it by your fingertips, you should actually be able to feel those air pockets inside. And all you need to do now is continue to toss it a few times, allowing it to actually puff up really nicely. And one particular technique I like to use to finish some roti out as well, very simply grab some kitchen paper or cotton cloth and proceed to pat your roti around the edges. This allows for your roti to continue to cook through without totally drying out over the sides and in the center. Now proceed to toss it around once more, doing the same thing. Pat it very lightly. And now allow for the complete cooking process to take place. Of course, paying attention to the color as well. Be sure to actually get a nice even color every time. And you can only achieve this by controlling your temperature on your hot pan, and as well, of course, turning it occasionally to allow for a nice consistent coloring. I'm going to turn that once more for the last time. And you can now proceed to grab a plate. Alright, so once that's nicely beautifully colored, proceed to move that onto a plate and proceed to do the same with your other piece. And you can now grab your knife and your chopping board, of course, and you can very quickly just slice your roti into half. We're going to be serving those on this nice beautiful wooden plank. So just layer them as simple as that. Spread them out on the plate. While we wait for the second piece to continue cooking, just grab your pan with your butter chicken mixture. And you can also proceed to plate that in a nice beautiful bowl if you have one, or a plate of your choice. And as you can see, a nice beautiful sauciness to it. Remember, it's actually nice and thick from the cooked tomatoes. So one particular checkpoint for nice butter chicken, it should actually not be extremely saucy. It should also have a nice beautiful ratio of sauce to chicken chunks. And of course, most importantly, it should actually carry that beautiful heat and that beautiful freshness and aromas of those beautiful spices we used on it earlier. Now to come back to our second piece, we're going to turn that once. And you should actually be able to see that swell up really nicely. It should actually puff up into a pocket while you do so. So very important to make sure you don't actually leave your pan unattended at this stage. Remember, the bread will actually cook quite a little quickly, and it will color very fast. So just to allow that a few more minutes of cooking, of course turning it occasionally on your pan, evening out the amount of temperature that comes onto your roti. We can turn that once more. And you should, as I mentioned, one particular good checkpoint to make sure you have a good roti recipe, it should actually puff up really nicely. You should actually be able to get some nice pockets, and even if you feel them with the tips of your fingers, the bread should actually be very light. So one last turn. And you should actually be able to get that beautiful color from the cameras. And very quickly proceed to do the same thing you did with the first piece. Some kitchen paper, or some cotton cloth that you may have in your kitchen. Proceed to pat your piece of roti right through the center and around the edges. Proceed to turn that over and begin to do the same. And once done, you can now turn off your heat completely and proceed to remove that as well. And very, very quickly proceed to slice that into quarters. Once more, layer the pieces of roti right over each other and proceed to add those to your plate. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my personal, very simple version of a butter chicken with some homemade roti. I do hope you've actually managed to enjoy the show today and you've managed to grasp something that you can incorporate into your own cooking techniques at home. But from my end, I'm completely done, and it's as simple as that. Some alterations to these recipes may be actually be found online. There's plenty of recipes to check out, so do actually have a feel of some recipes. And most of all, remember, the only best practice to actually remember a recipe by is by actually attempting it yourselves at home. But from the studios, thank you once again for those of you tuning in to BrandPlus TV from Facebook Live. Do remember to scroll down to your comment section on our BrandPlus channel page. Do leave your comments, inquiries, or any particular issues pertaining the show. We are always willing and ready to hear from you. But from the studios, once again, thank you, and until the next episode, have a lovely evening. Enjoy your dinner this evening, and see you soon.